start of the week here on The Form. We've got lots to get through. We count down to Cox Plate weekend on Saturday. Can Zaki do it? That's the question. We'll be finding out more about that later in the week. For now, though, let's have a little look at what's on today's agenda. We kick things off with Brendan Popplewell, who talks us through the meeting from Todong. He's got a best, next best and a value. We then head to Justin Evans, who's at the Invercargill Greyhounds on this Wednesday afternoon. We then go across the ditch because, of course, yesterday was Breakfast with the Best, where all of the Cox Plate stars were out in action, and we've got some exclusive interviews from that. And we wrap things up with Brent Zarafa, who talks through not only Cox Plate weekend, but also, of course, Geelong as well. Lots to get through with him. Well, first up on the form is Brendan Popplewell. And Brendan, we've got Todong to enjoy this afternoon. Tell me a little bit about the meeting. 7 races, I understand. Short and sweet.
It certainly is, Emily. A very good morning to you. Look, it's a race meeting where there's a couple of very handy races I'd look out for. I feel as though there's a nice maiden 3-year-old and some horses that have coming through those maiden 3-year-olds in terms of trials, or maybe a couple have had a few race day starts. So despite them just being the 7 races, there is a couple of good races to look forward to, and a few of those we're going to identify this morning on the form.
Let's start with your best. I understand you've got a next best as well, and you're kicking things off early in the program, getting punters off to a winning start, I hope.
Well, let's hope so, Emily, with those fingers and toes crossed. And we'll go to Miss Lovato in race number 1. She went round as a very short price favourite last time to the races on debut, and she was actually beaten by Eva Chiara. Now, she just got back maybe a pair or two further back than what they were liking. She was just awkward away from the barriers, and it meant that she was back in a small field and she had to loop them. I mean, looking like the winner on the point of the bend, but then Eva Chiara was just that horse who got the splits late and was able to power over the top of the favourite of Miss Lovato. With a good barrier draw coming up this afternoon, I just thought she was a horse who might be able to hopefully get out of the barriers cleanly and be positive and be put into the race. And as we've seen around Todong so often, if you can be in that forward position in some of those earlier races, and if she can take that position up on speed, she might be hard to catch. She's a horse who's trolled super prior to that first up defeat. She was in around horses like Magic Show out of the Pike Barn, who's then gone on to win first up to the races. So things look nice around here in terms of what she's done at the trials, that first up experience. The track conditions around that slow bracket at the moment, so she handled that okay on the slow 8 at Rotorua. So I was keen to mark her as my best on the program in race number 1, Miss Lovato.
And tell me about your next best, Brendan.
Yeah, my next best, I'm going to go for a really nice form reference here, and it goes around in race number 5 by the name of Madame Lafay. Now, this is a runner that did run third first up to the races this preparation. She's a 4-year-old mare by Smart Missile, trained by Ben Foote. Now, this horse ran third at Te Araha behind 2 eventual winners over the weekend. The winner of the race was Solid Impact, who then came out and won stylishly at Hawke's Bay on the last day of the carnival. And the second horse in this race was Poverty Bay, who won on Sunday out of Rotorua. So 2 really good winners from the weekend just gone, and I like how she's finished into third position. She has a nice barrier draw. She's a horse who goes naturally up in distance now from 14 to 1600 metres. Keen to have something on her.
Spoiling us on the form this morning, Brendan, because you've also got a value bet for us. What's this one?
Look, I identified this horse quite some time ago. It's in race number 2 by the name of Eyes Only on Me. She is a first starter. This runner is trained by Nigel Tiley by Free Eagle. Now, this horse trialled back in May. So we have to wind the clock back to see this horse trialling as a 2-year-old, but ready to get through conditions nice. I love the way that she's been able to get through the conditions and let down. Now, she's been put aside. She has had a jump out since, and she's run second at the Pookie jump outs back on the 27th of September. Obviously, just that little risk because we're only going off one trial with what we've seen in May and that gap in between, but trained by the master and Nigel Tiley. And what we did see in that trial is the horse was able to get through the wet conditions. It's a race that should hold up. There looks to be a lot of good form around this race in terms of race day form with Street Kid, who was beaten in that strong 3-odd race that was won by Paranui Bay from the Pike Barn. We've seen Mercurial bounce out of that race and win on the weekend just gone, beating Waikari. Well, Street Kid ran 6th in that race. You've got La Bella Beals, who's had 3 starts for 3/3. Just looks to be a really strong race with a couple of other good trialists. So happy to play this one on the each way and Eyes Only on Me from Nigel Tiley's barn with Michael McNabb riding a really good fashion, taking the ride.
Yeah, sure is. Love your work, Brendan. Thanks so much for your time and enjoy that meeting from Todong.
Nice one. Thanks, Emily.
Justin Evans is up next here on The Form. We've got 13 races from Invercargill Greyhounds. Justin, you're the man at the track and looks like it's shaping up to be a good meeting.
Yeah, really looking forward to it, Emily. Hi to you. And a good little card, 13 races, and lucky enough to have one of the country's best again here. Last week we were lucky enough to have It's a Blaze come down to the deep south. This week it's Leonard Bale, who's been one of our premier chasers over the last couple of years, really. Leonard Bale, multiple Group 1 winner, and good to see him here. He should be winning. He's race number 5. He's back to a sprint. He's only had the 1:3:90 here at Ascot Park, and he burnt around in a really fast 22:15, Emily. So he'll win. I won't be tipping him, though. He'll be microscopic odds, but good to see him at the track anyway.
Yeah, it sure is. I know you're pretty excited about your best and value bet. Tell me about both of those.
Yeah, Emily, I'm pretty hot on particularly the best of the day. So we'll start with him. Race 10, number 1, Homebush Liam. Look, he looks extremely well placed here, punters. He's been a multiple Class 3 winner. He's into a Class 2. He's drawn where he needs to be. That's the inside. He's a mad railer. He's got terrific box speed. I think he's too good for them. I think he'll leg to the lead. I think he'll control the race, and I think he'll win. He was very good here last week. He ran second at a good price, actually, and he was very good. He bounced out. He just couldn't quite get the rail. He rallied well up the straight. The other thing with him, he's very strong at the 390. So like I say, look, I'll be very surprised if he gets beaten. I just can't see a scenario where that's going to happen. So I think he'll be straight to the front and we'll get the cash, punters. So whatever the price is, I suggest take it. Value of the day, Emily, we'll try and get off in the first of the day. I really like one here, number 7, Sozan's Prince, who is a maiden who hasn't had a whole lot of luck for John McInerney. He returned from a 6-week break on Monday at Addington. He was really good. He ran third. He's in a race that, to be honest about life, it's pretty weak. It lacks depth. A number of these have had plenty of chances. I think he's got more upside than anything. I think he's got box speed. I think he's got early pace in a race that lacks both. So like, he's pretty hard to beat in the first, Emily. Hopefully we get an okay price about him. I don't expect to be favourite, so if he's at a backable price, I suggest making an investment in the first with number 7, Sozan's Prince.
Great stuff, Justin. Thanks for all that info. Enjoy the Invercargill meeting and look forward to catching up with you later in the week.
Thanks so much.
As promised, it's now time to head across the ditch here on The Form. Breakfast with the best is synonymous with the Cox Plate. The Tuesday before the Cox Plate, all the stars strut their stuff at the Valley track, and we got some exclusive interviews to find out how they're shaping up.
Well, Todd, Zaki galloped here on Saturday morning. You said you had a big smile on your face. What was the reaction this morning?
Yeah, very similar. Pretty much the same sort of work as both him and Moanga did on Saturday morning. Maybe a little bit stronger, which was good to see, but yeah, Zaki exactly the same. Great through the line, strong on the bridle, so couldn't be happier.
You've said in the past that Zaki can be a bit of a casual worker, but it sounds like you saw what you wanted to see as sort of a final hit out for Saturday?
Yeah, especially when he's looking around these new sort of courses, but yeah, good to have him come here for a second time, and he just seems to be going a lot better than what he probably was going into the last start. Just in terms of his final piece of work on the Tuesday, Raphael, who rides him in his track work, he just gets on so well with him, and riding him this morning just did exactly what we wanted. Was right on Moanga the whole time, and just really kept Zaki focused and on the job, and probably kept Moanga up to the mark too, actually.
You mentioned that Might and Power run. How's the horse come through that and picked up out of it?
Yeah, he's been perfect. It was, a few easy days after the run, take them to the beach, and seems to be bouncing now. So he knows when it's race day. He's pretty quiet back at home, but he gets along to a day like this and he prances around, and he's on his toes, and yeah, he seems right where we want him to be.
And your feedback from your work riders, obviously they don't think he's going to have any trouble with the circumference here on Saturday?
No, he seems to handle this track a lot better than what he did at Caulfield. And many people say that too. You come from Sydney and quite often they don't handle the Caulfield track, but they come to Moonee Valley and just get on so much better with it. But on his two pieces of work, he just seems to be, he seems to have fitted around the valley perfect. So and Raphael was really happy with him this morning.
Mo'unga arrived on Thursday night from Sydney, had a look here on Saturday and another familiarisation this morning. Happy with the way that he's progressing?
Yeah, he's going super for what he does. Quite often if he did work with Zaki, which he has done a few times in the past, Zaki usually has his measure, which we saw today. But look, the way Mo'unga worked, it was probably one of the better pieces of work you'd see from him. I said on Saturday he can be very casual, but the blinkers going on race day, and it just makes a big difference. But Fred, he done us a favour. Hugh Bowman's on Saturday, but he's rode him the last couple of times, and I think he'd love if he could sit on the horse because he thinks he's going really well.
Barrier draw obviously this morning. Where would you ideally like to see that your two stables' chances draw?
Just somewhere in the middle. 5 or 6 would probably be ideal for both of them. Mo'unga, he likes to get wide and a bit of clear air because he can come off the bridle. Just needs to probably get niggled out a long way out. So if he gets into the open, I think he can really hit the line well, and he's a big chance. Whereas Zaki, you'd probably happily see him anywhere from 4, 5 or 6. He can just, James will be on, tactically just put him wherever he wants him to in the race. There should be a bit of speed with that Kiwi horse coming over and a few others. So I think it's going to be a run to suit. And look, both are really good chances. Obviously, Zaki's favoured in the market, but Mo'unga's going to run a big race too.
What's the rest of the week look like for the pair leading up to Saturday? I know you've been going down to the beach a little bit, and that is that part of their recovery and lead up into Saturday? Yeah,
they'll probably go down a couple of times more. Straight from the gallops, actually, we'll head there now and help cool the legs off, which will be good for them. And basically just wrap them in cotton wool. It's good to get this morning out of the way. Bit of pressure off our backs to see them both work well, and as long as they come through it, we'll just get them here in tip-top shape on Saturday.
Plenty of phone calls back to the boss, I'm sure. How's Annabelle going, and how's she dealing with the week, I suppose?
Yeah, it's she calls a fair bit, but probably staying away from it probably helps with the pressure for her a little bit. I'm not too sure. I haven't asked how she's dealing with it, but hopefully she's okay. I know she wishes she could be down here, but it's just unfortunate how it's worked out. Just with the team back at home, we've got some big races to look forward to back there as well. So hopefully we can get the job done for her.
Well, it's an exciting day for the stable with 2 runners on Saturday and the big one. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Well, Luke, first set of old Calcine Mab this morning at the Valley. What feel did he give you?
Yeah, he's a casual bastard, a bit like myself. So, but he gave me a nice feel underneath, and he went out there and worked in a sound manner. So I'm very happy. Looking forward to Saturday. Can't wait.
Happy with the way that he took to the tight circumference?
Yeah, he had no issues with it. He's raced left-handed a fair bit back home, so he very comfortable around here. Only second look at it, but Saturday under race circumstances, it doesn't hold any fears.
You would have gone back and had a look at his tapes and form, no doubt, a Group 1 winner at his last 2 starts in New Zealand. How do you sort of see him measuring up in the Cox Plate?
It's hard to probably line it all up, but they've come across in years gone by and been very competitive, the Kiwis, so I'd expect the same. It seems an even, like we saw Zaki and Very Elegant get beat that last run, so maybe it's evened it up a little bit, but whatever service was presented Saturday, I think he's effective on all. He came across in great shape. John's done a magnificent job with him, so he just had a couple of minor maintenance gallops and a look around here, and he's ready to go Saturday.
Horse seems to have a bold front-running racing style, so should take luck out of the equation.
He doesn't need to lead, and he can get very competitive when he's found in that position. But he's got the visors on, so he can see him coming if he do find ourselves in that position. But he can set off a pace as well and be as effective.
Barrier draw this morning. What would be the ideal outcome for you?
Just anywhere from middle to inside, but it depends on what the weather does the rest of the week, because we've got 8 races. Well, we'll probably have about 16 races before the grand final on Saturday, so that'll play probably a vital role as well.
Wind back the clock to 2007, El Segundo. It's a special race for you, isn't it, the Cox Plate?
Yeah, a long time ago. I had less grey hair, so I probably don't. No, I'm no smarter. Or not. I'm no less silly anyway. So it came pretty quickly for me. I was an older bloke at that time that I didn't realise how hard these particularly the big 4 are to win. I've had a lot of rides in both the Caulfield Cups and Melbourne Cups and Slippers, so they're hard to win. This one's a hard race to get a ride in, let alone win. So I've got my lottery ticket Saturday, and I can't wait to hopefully cash it in.
Well, Damien, you saw Very Elegant work this morning. Happy with what the feel she gave you?
Yeah, she seems to have come through a Turnbull run in good order, and happy with where she's at leading into Saturday.
She was here on Saturday morning. You gave her a bit of a click up there. Were you happy with what you felt? And then was it more a familiarisation this morning?
Yeah, she was very good Saturday. She worked in a mate. She got very keen behind as she can get a bit excitable. She worked away from her mate on Saturday. Today was more of a maintenance gallop, but I felt she was in even better order today.
Chris Waller said during the week he was just going to wait for the thumbs up from you, and that'll make him a bit more confident heading into Saturday. It sounds like he's going to get that thumbs up.
Yeah, certainly a thumbs up from this morning.
And, that Turnbull runner, you're sort of happy with the way that she's come through that, and where are you hoping the barrier draw that she might be able to draw this morning to give you the best option on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one because, barrier draws can be so much less important without knowing what horses are around you. So, a lot depends on where other horses draw, and, you never want to give yourself a task of really wide barriers, so, anything between 2 to 6 would be perfect.
It sounds like you're reasonably confident that she can hit back hard on Saturday?
Yeah, she'll be right. She's a champion, and she won't stay down for too long.
It was only 2 years ago you rode a sensational mare to win this race. I'm sure it'll be very special to try and replicate that and do it again here this weekend.
Yeah, and I think, that was a special day. I think I said at the track work the Tuesday before that Saturday that the Cox Plate has a funny way of finding the best horse to win the race, and hopefully that happens again this time around.
Not here this morning, but Kemmel Pass as you ride in the Manikato on Friday night. Looking forward to that after partnering in the Gill Guy.
Yeah, he's a tough, honest horse who was defeated narrowly in the Gill Guy, and really looking forward to getting him here around the valley.
Well, with the Caulfield Cup behind us, it's now time to move on to the Cox Plate. And as tradition with Cox Plate Week, we've got breakfast with the best on a Tuesday morning. And Brent, so much to unpack here. We've had the barrier draw. We've seen these Cox Plate stars out working on the track. You were there to have a little look. What did you take away from seeing the horses gallop?
Well, we've got some high-class horses, obviously, heading towards one of the best, if not the best weight for age, 2,000-metre race in the country. So you would assume these horses are they're at their peak. They all look in terrific condition, and there are not too many horses that work poorly on a Tuesday morning heading into Moonee Valley on the Saturday. But it's been a bit of a change in tradition over the past couple of years in that trainers are actually going to Moonee Valley on the Saturday before and having their real sort of solid hit out on the Saturday without all the fanfare. And not that there's any fanfare this year or was last year with no crowds, but then also just going back for a bit of a look on Tuesday and not particularly doing as much. And this was the case again this year with, a large portion of the Cox Plate runners heading towards the race this weekend, stretching their legs on Saturday morning. So it's been great. The Moonee Valley Racing Club film all the gallops also on the Saturday. So for anyone who hasn't seen them and wants to get a glimpse of them, you can just head to their YouTube channel and all the gallops are there in plenty of detail. But from the leading Cox Plate contenders, I think Zaki, he looks like he's taken a lot out of his gallop on Saturday, and then he just looked a little more switched on this morning. He worked with his stablemate in Mwanga, who's obviously a high-class horse and a Group 1 winner. And you look at that gallop and you see Zaki on the outside. He travelled up sort of without being placed under too much pressure and went past on the inside. But it is worth noting that Mwanga wasn't wearing his blinkers, and the stable representative from the Annabelle Nation team suggesting that he's a real sort of laid-back customer in his work, and he does tend to switch on race day when he does get the blinkers. Very elegant. She worked in partnership on Saturday, but then worked on her own on Tuesday morning, and she's never exactly been the most straightforward of mares, and she's still quite keen in her work, but Damien Lane had her on a tight rein and sort of just kept her quite sort of together, and then allowed her to stride up slightly inside the last 400 metres, but she wasn't out there to break any records. Animo, he worked with Captivant, the other 3-year-old, on Saturday, and then worked on his own today, and he looks very, very strong heading towards a Cox Plate, coming off a Caulfield Guineas victory, and just has that 3-year-old X factor. Call sign Mav, the Kiwi representative who's coming across here on the back of 2 Group 1 victories. He looked to be in terrific order, but again, wasn't out there to break any records, just giving him a good opportunity to have a look at the surrounds. It is a unique track at Moonee Valley, but over the years, the good horses seem to get around it, no doubt.
Then obviously we had the barrier draw. Has that changed your opinion of the race? Has it changed who you like in the race?
Not particularly, and this year we've only got a field of 10, so the maximum field they can run in a Moonee Valley, in a Cox Plate at Moonee Valley is 14. So it's quite a unique race in that whoever nominates and accepts doesn't just automatically get into the field. It comes down to a vote from the Moonee Valley Racing Club Committee, and they have the power of omission. Basically, they can include or exclude any horse that they deem not suitable to run in the Cox Plate. And that was the case this year with KI Nautica, Japanese Group 1 winner who is with Matthew Smith in Sydney and has been running in some good races. Wasn't too far from Incentivise in a Group 1 Makybe Diva Stakes, ran really well in the Wink Stakes up in Sydney. So that's the controversy at this stage, that he was omitted and not allowed to get into the field. So with a field of 10, not a capacity field, I'm not overly sort of troubled by barriers. You have to look back last weekend. Incentivise drew barrier 20 coming to 18, wins the Caulfield Cup. Prior to that, Animo drew barrier 15 in a Caulfield Guineas and was able to win. I think it's more the makeup of the race and where sort of horses are going to settle in their positions and what the track is going to be doing on the day. Obviously, we've got the Manikato Stakes meeting on Friday night. So they run 8 races on the Friday night and then 10 races at Moonee Valley on the Saturday, generally leaving the rail in the true position. So we've often seen in the past couple of years, getting away from the inside section and down the middle of the track is probably the place to be come race, 17 or 16 on the program in the space of 24 hours. So I wouldn't be getting overly sort of worried or concerned with any particular gate at this stage. I think if you're in the field, you've got your chance, and it's going to be up to the horse and rider to perform on the day.
Well, with all things considered, barrier draws, how they've worked this morning, previous runs, what is your assessment of the race as a whole? Who are you tipping?
Well, it was quite a shock to see Zaki defeated for the first time in a number of starts in the Might and Power Stakes at Caulfield last time out. But I still think he deserves to be considered the favourite from his body of work previous to that. Now, the Caulfield track was a good 3 that day. It was probably the firmest surface that Zaki has experienced since joining the Annabelle Neesham team and being here in Australia. And whether that was the reason for his defeat, whether he didn't really handle Caulfield, whether he was maybe just a little bit underdone heading into his grand final, I'm not particularly sure what the reason was for his below par performance. But I would be somewhat confident that he's better than what he produced that day, and he should be able to bounce back. And that's not discrediting Probabile by any stretch of the imagination. She's a quality mare and deserved to get that Group 1 victory. And I think she's one that's very much suited to the way the track raced that day. She loves firm ground, and she really was able to show her best. Now, there is a little bit of rain about, but traditionally, Moonee Valley is a more forgiving surface than Caulfield. Even if it is a good rating surface, the Strathair has a lot more cushion in it. So I think Zaki, with James McDonald getting back on board, deserves to be considered the horse to beat. But I think Animo is now the X factor, the 3-year-old coming into the race. And the Cox Plate is, over the past couple of decades, is littered with 3-year-olds that have been able to get up and perform on the big stage. Seamus Award was a maiden going in. So You Think was defeated in a Caulfield Guineas and managed to win at Cox Plate. But then even in recent years, horses that have been defeated but have performed extremely well. Castelvecchio ran really well behind the Japanese mare in Lise Grischer. Yankee Rose had placed 3rd. They're having that 49.5 kilos under weight for age conditions is a great recipe in this famous race. And I think Animo profiles every bit as good, if not better, than some of those previous lightly raced horses that have been in the event. He heads into the race 4th up, now getting to the 2,000 metres. He was strong in a fast run Caulfield Guineas. So he has everything on his CV to say that he's going to run particularly well. And Craig Williams getting down to ride that light in a Cox Plate. Look, they're the 2 horses that are at the top of the betting at this stage, and I think that's rightly justified. Then you've got to throw into the mix a couple of internationals that we haven't seen under race conditions in Australia, one of those being Gold Trip, who this time last year had ran 4th in a Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe, may have been on wet ground and maybe over 1.5 miles, but is a horse that has extreme quality and is now with the Kieran Maher and Dave Eustace team. And then you've also got State of Rest from the Joseph O'Brien stable, who's a Group 1 winner in America. And Joseph O'Brien has, over the past couple of years, been very selective with the horses that he has brought out to Australia for a spring carnival, but has been overly successful with 2 Melbourne Cup victories. So you have to respect the horses that he does bring down here. But yeah, it's a very open Cox Plate. I don't think there's a dominant standout, but my feeling at this stage, with still a few days to work out how the race is going to unfold, is I'd likely be leaning to the 3-year-old in Animo and Zaki as the main danger.
You mentioned there James McDonald obviously partnering up with Zaki, and that's added a little bit of a new dimension, hasn't it, with those Sydney jockeys able to come down under restrictions to ride at the Cox Plate?
Yeah, well, this is indicative of where society is moving, thankfully, here in Melbourne and also Australia, because over the past couple of weeks, Sydney has moved out of their lockdown due to their vaccination rates. And here in Victoria, we're expecting later this week or on Friday, we come out of lockdown and we'll be able to socialise a lot more than what we have done over the past couple of months. And as a result, the Victorian government has actually eased the restrictions on travellers coming down into Melbourne from New South Wales. So that had come after the jockeys had been given the approval. So initially, James McDonald, Hugh Bowman, Karen McAvoy, a few of the other jockeys that were coming down, they were going to have to quarantine for 6 days and then be able to ride. But as a result of the change in legislation for the wider public and society, they now only need to stay sort of isolated for 72 days. Once they test negative, then they can continue to ride. So that's going to be great for not only this week at Moonee Valley, but also heading into Derby Day and then Cup Week at Flemington. It'll just allow the more free movement of not only just the jockeys, but also trainers and participants that are willing to move their horses around. So James McDonald, no doubt, absolutely delighted that he could come down to ride Zaki. Obviously had a terrific weekend last weekend, winning the Everest aboard Nature Strip, and he will remain now in Melbourne. We did an interview with him on racing.com on Monday evening, heading towards the Melbourne Cup, and then he'll stay to ride Nature Strip on the final day of the carnival in the feature Group 1 Sprint Classic down the straight.
Yeah, awesome stuff, and certainly adds to the hype of what is a big spring carnival. Let's turn our attention to Geelong, Brent, because with it being spring carnival time, there's treats midweek and all sorts of good things to look forward to. Geelong has obviously the Geelong Classic and the Geelong Cup. Let's first tackle the Geelong Classic. A number of Kiwis in here that I'm interested to get your opinion on. Tell me a little bit about how you assess the field.
Well, it's a very open race, and some of these 3-year-olds are going to be potentially heading towards a derby. I think Todong has put together a piece of work which would suggest that now getting into the 2,200 metres, he should be starting to hit his straps. He's had 2 runs back this time in, and he looks like he's building quite nicely. You've also got a couple of horses in this that haven't exactly sort of competed at a high level just yet. They're quite lightly raced 3-year-olds, and over the past couple of years, this hasn't exactly been the strongest form line heading towards a Victoria Derby. It might throw up one this year. I know King of Pharaohs was actually entered for a race at Hamilton today, and they decided to scratch and head towards the Geelong Classic, which is totally justifiable. So I wouldn't be shocked if something emerges from the pack in the Geelong Classic. Dario was pretty disappointing last time out at Kyneton. I'm not sure what the wash-up was there for Murray Baker and Andrew Forsman. He just seemed very plain. He looked to have every chance, and I'm not sure what to make of his performance. So maybe getting onto a bigger track and stepping out in trip at Geelong, he can improve. But it's not a race that I've got a lot of confidence in at this stage. I still think there's a lot to play out. But the big talking point with the Geelong Cup is that the favourite, Charlie Rose, she's currently around sort of $2.62.50. She's on the cusp of already being in the field for the Melbourne Cup, and having a chat with her trainer in Simon Wild, he's sort of still up in the air as to whether he's going to run in the Geelong Cup, because he wants to keep her relatively fresh for a Melbourne Cup campaign. He seems to think that's the best way of preparing her for a 2-mile race. And he isn't overly sort of keen on, by the sound of things, winning the Geelong Cup and then being open to a weight penalty. But then on the flip side, he's sort of on the precipice of maybe not getting in the final field of 24. But with attrition at this stage, she looks like she will get into the field. So they're going to make a decision late on Tuesday as to whether they run. And that's going to have significant ramifications on the Geelong Cup, obviously, because she is the favourite, and then what it means for the rest of the field. Defibrillate, a Kiwi who's come across to be with Patrick Payne was terrific, I thought, last time out, and deserves to be considered one of the key chances. With Billy Egan in the saddle, Le Don de Vie was the winner of a Warrnambool Cup. He ran really well in the Geelong Cup this time last year, running second. You've got Mirage Dancer, who's been very consistent for Trent Busserton and Natalie Young. So a lot will hinge on whether Tralee Rose goes around. And if she does, her last start performance in the Bart Cummings was no doubt good enough to win this race. And it's not an automatic entry, the Geelong Cup, into the Melbourne Cup, but you are open to being re-handicapped. So that's why a lot of horses do go here. If they happen to win, they can be open to a weight penalty, which may bump them up in the rankings to get into the final field of 24 for the Melbourne Cup on the first Tuesday in November.
Yeah, a lot to change potentially with that Geelong Cup. What about the meeting as a whole, Brent? Have you got something that we can follow?
Yeah, it's a strong meeting, as it is each and every year, the Geelong Cup program. And unfortunately, we're still under restrictions on crowd. So the local community generally supports this meeting very strongly. It's a local public holiday, even though Geelong's, only 50 or 60 kilometres away from Melbourne. That region does celebrate their Cup Day quite well. And I think there's a horse early in the program which goes around in race number 5 by the name of Crestani. That looks very hard to beat for Pat Kerry. This horse has been racing particularly well of late. He's coming out of an event at Caulfield behind an impressive horse in Dirty Thoughts, and the format of that race has been exceptional. So I think Crestani's the best bet, in my opinion, at this stage, race 5, number 6. There's a horse that has finished behind Crestani last start that I think is massive odds, goes around in race number 3 by the name of Casio, horse number 1. It's had 2 runs back at 1,200 metres, and it's not sort of suited at that distance range. This horse has been performed at a much higher level, now drops back to benchmark 64 grade. It's currently around sort of $21, that $19 mark. I think it's worth having something on. So race 3, number 1, Casio, and my best bet would be race 5, number 6, Crestani.
Geez, I don't mind a value at $21. Brent, we'll take that.
Well, fingers crossed it can win.
Yeah, exactly. No, thanks very much for your time, and enjoy Cox Plate Week. Looking forward to seeing all the stars stepping out on Saturday.
Not a problem, anytime.
Well, with all of that info from our form analysts, it's now time to recap what they like for their best bets. Another show done and dusted. Time flies when you're having fun. Hopefully you've enjoyed all of the information that we've brought to you on this Wednesday. Aidan Rodley will be with you tomorrow for Thursday's edition, and I'll be back with you on Friday. All the best from the team here at The Form. We'll see you later in the week.